The Maruti Suzuki Vitara is finally in showrooms and with a price. It's the first EV for Maruti in 40 plus years. The first Japanese EV actually into the mass market as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this edition of Deep Drive. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto. And yes, indeed, Hormazd, like you said, it's finally here. Maruti says India goes electric. I think it's Maruti finally going electric because we waited for this to happen for a long time. And not just this product, but for the company. I mean, over half a decade ago, I think 6 odd years, WagonR EVs were seen testing on
right.
roads. And it looked like, okay, that's where they're heading and Maruti's going to go electric. But it's been a long, long wait.
I know, and for the market leader to be, lagging in bringing EVs to the market. I mean, they always said that, look, when we come, we're going to do it properly. They said we're not worried about being late to the party, and we're going to do it properly. But the question is, have they done it properly?
Right.
I think, to be honest, a bit of a disappointment, and I think the only saving grace or the only way they knew they could kind of really, have some semblance of success was the price.
Right.
And possibly that's why it was delayed for so long, because a very unusual way the vehicle was launched. We saw it first at the Auto Expo,
Right.
over a year back.
Yeah.
Then they kind of did an unveil in December, no price announced, no specs,
Right.
and took 2 months then to finally, launch the price. A good price, one would say, but obviously, I think a lot was hinging on the price.
No, absolutely, Hormazd. In fact, as you said, they knew it's not the best effort, especially not when you've waited for so long. Others moved ahead. Others went electric and refined their products from Hyundai. They are, rivals in this space with the electric Creta. Homegrown manufacturers too. Tata have the Curve, they've got the Nexon, and then you've got Mahindra as well. So everyone had products, refined them,
And even got a company like VinFast right now, which you
Exactly.
can't write off, okay, small volumes, but
True.
I mean, phenomenal value what they're giving in their cars.
Exactly. And in the last couple of months, they've really been outselling in Hyundai, so that's saying something, Now, I think, the price, if you look at the price, it's like, 16 odd lakh to 20 lakh. Clearly undercutting the Creta, which is 18 to 25 odd lakh. They knew they had to do this, right? And like you said, there was some, I would say, shortcomings in the product. Now, it's a born electric vehicle, and we've discussed this a lot, right? It is a born electric platform and things like that, but it shows many traits of like a conversion and sort of many compromises when you do a conversion platform. Which
The high floor, for example.
high flow.
Space isn't great.
Exactly. You're sitting high flow and your headroom is
Boot
less.
space isn't great either.
Boot space is very tiny. The placement of the front, placement of the main motor, it's in the front. Almost every, like 80-90% of, born EVs, they'll place the main motor at the rear.
But this has a four-wheel drive option.
It has a four-wheel drive, but it's a smaller motor at the rear. So now,
Right, so it's a front bias.
it's a front biased one. So now you're dulling that, that torque, because you don't want to, EVs have instant sort of torque delivery.
Putting that all through the steered wheels.
To the steered wheels, exactly.
And obviously, with acceleration, the front wheels lose traction because of
Exactly.
the weight transfer to the rear.
Exactly, which is for all these reasons why, born EVs, they tend to put them, the main motor at the rear. Even some mega conversions like the Harrier, and then you get the consumer benefit of a front.
There's even what people don't realize a cost saving, because a lot of the expensive kind of, let's say, hardware, from
The cabling.
the
Exactly.
cabling, yeah, exactly.
Everything's at the rear.
That's right.
In a crash, the high voltage cablings is at the rear.
Right.
A lot of advantages, frankly, with the main motor in the rear and the front. In the e-Vitara, there is no space, and I think it's just one of these like nice tickler kind of features to have.
Right.
So you're throwing away all that, so they've got that. The screens. I think you had explained to me once about this ratio between the firewall and the, I think the center line of the steering. You can't alter that in a platform.
No, you can't. I mean, that's absolutely fixed. One of the hard points.
Right.
It is. Yeah.
So it's a single pane, but the screens don't align.
Right.
So it seems like they're juggling with certain hard points. So it's not an ideal.
And Sergius, let's put the price into context.
Right.
Clearly, they are selling it at a very aggressive price.
Yes.
I don't think there would be any margin on the India vehicle. A lot of the content is imported. I mean, even the batteries
Right.
For example, everyone's importing the cells but making the batteries locally.
Right.
Here they've got the whole pack imported. They're not even assembling the pack locally. So clearly this is a very export-oriented vehicle,
Right.
which we know. I think it's, as Maruti said, it's going to go into 100 markets. It's going to make this very, very global. But we've already got some. In fact, I think it was launched internationally before India as well.
Yes.
And I think clearly, if you see the delta, I think in Europe it costs what, some. You have some prices.
Yeah, I've
here,
got
isn't
some.
it?
I've got some prices here. I mean, if you convert it, let's say in the UK, it's about 30 plus lakh, 35 odd lakh, depending on the exchange rate, of
Wow.
course. So yeah, that's what
Half
it's
the
at.
price over here.
Exactly. It's 40 lakh in other parts of Europe, not the UK, the EU areas as such.
But I think Indonesia is more like to like, because you've got an Ertiga, so you have some context over there. So that
Yeah, but Indonesia too, it is expensive because it's at 40 odd lakh. So
right.
that's
Well, I think we have to put it into context that, we've got that 5% GST, which really helps
Right.
lower the price over here. But what is the Ertiga in Indonesia vis-a-vis the Ertiga here? I think that will give you some.
Yeah, so the
some delta.
Ertiga in India, yeah, we know it's like an 8 lakh rupee, 8 to 12 lakh. The Indonesia price is 14 to 16. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, similar there.
Yeah. So clearly, I think, they've maybe got the confidence to price it internationally more. But over here, it's very interesting, I think. And it speaks a lot about the Indian market, how competitive it is, how, let's say, value driven it is. And clearly, I think it's a admission by Maruti that, uh, the value has to come from the price, because it's not coming from the product.
Right. Yeah.
So
and they had to, Hormazd, if you see, they had to even, I would say, rush out a BASS price, a battery as a service price.
that's right. Yeah.
Because even as we speak, officially, there is no release detailing out who the partners are, the finance, because as we know, BASS is essentially a finance scheme.
Again, BSS or BaaS, I think you have to hand that to MG, which really kind of came up with the concept,
Right.
and they just copied this. So have Tata Motors as well. So really nothing innovative in that sense.
Right.
But
yeah. And it doesn't make sense. In fact, just to, maybe talk a little bit about that, it doesn't make sense for, I would say, most consumers, which is why the take-up is, I think it never went beyond 15% for MG. It's
Right.
always been 5.
I heard it was even less. Yeah.
Even less, right? Yeah, exactly. So, it's because, I mean, I was looking,
Basically, there are two EMIs.
there are two EMIs. You're basically financing the battery.
And whether the vehicle is used or not used, it's the same flat.
Yes, on MG, they do have a per kilometer basis, depending again on the bank, and there's some minimum commitment. It's quite complex there. Maruti, apparently, it's more straightforward from what we've seen so far. You have a base price of 10.99 lakh. You have a minimum tenure. So you've got to guarantee that 8 years, right? So that's 96 odd months. And the monthly price of 7,200. So they're saying you'll drive about 1,800 kilometers a month.
Right.
Whether you drive more or less, they will not change that value. So it's nothing but a EMI that you've taken for the, and if you look at it, it works out more expensive than just buying it without the
Right. But to give it to Maruti Suzuki and the Vitara, what I would say is that what you can be assured of is a super reliable product, which shouldn't give you any trouble.
Absolutely. I think that's,
and I think we've seen there was a delay actually. They don't say it, but we know from suppliers there was a 6-month delay in the launch of it. Some issue with the silver box or the CDC, the cockpit domain controller, which we understand that's the feedback or the kind of grapevine we've heard, not confirmed. So it goes to show that companies like the Japanese especially, they will refine everything, make sure it's tested, validated before putting it in the hands of the customer.
Absolutely.
Which, to be honest, is something which Tata Motors and Mahindra don't do. They rush it out and, the initial customers, get the glitches. So I think that's one thing we can be assured of, that it will be, let's say a super reliable and trouble-free product.
Absolutely, honest. I think you're absolutely right. The Indian brands, even VinFast, we know the way, the pace at which they went. It was about innovating and getting the product out, and then
and they got a lot of flack in US and everything, quality issues over there, which we know about. So exactly. But I think Sergius, the consumer, I think the EV consumer is far more experimental and willing to take a bit of risk.
Right.
Now, let's say vis-a-vis an MPV buyer who wants zero risk. That's why, Marutis and Toyota just rule that roost. Anyone can come with anything. People are just risk averse over there. They want to go with tried and tested. I think with EVs, people are more experimental, willing to take a bit of risk, which in a way works against Maruti because their main selling point is not the selling point perhaps for an EV buyer. And despite all the glitches and everything, Mahindra is still doing some pretty good numbers. And so is Tata Motors. Tata Motors is still the number one EV player despite all the flack and, let's say anti-Tata, buzz that there's been, especially on social media. It's still today the number one EV player, So I think it tells you a lot about the Indian consumer and the kind of segment that they're buying cars in.
No, absolutely. And Tata Motors, I mean, again, the Punch EV. An EV we both like.
Absolutely. And I think, Sergius, interesting, the Punch EV was launched just a few days after the, and I think it took the wind out of the e-Vitara. Took the wind out of the e-Vitara because, okay, it's much smaller, but what a price. What spec, cheaper than before, and what is the top end is around 12, 13
yeah, it goes from 9.96 to about 12 or 13. I'm not sure right now, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll have it up on the screen.
We'll have it up on the screen for you, yeah. So, I mean, it was 1.8 lakh, I think, cheaper than previous electric.
More range.
Yes. More power as well, about 7 horsepower more.
Yeah.
They're using this new 6-in-1 sort of powertrain.
Yeah. And that's what makes it hard for not only the Japanese, but a lot of global OEMs to compete. The ability of the Indians to kind of pack in so much value, up everything in terms of features, range, and give it at a low price.
And re-engineer so fast, Hormazd. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Which international OEM would keep re-engineering the product this quickly? I mean, it's an all-new powertrain inside there.
Exactly. I mean, even a company like Mahindra, I think feedback which we had also given on the soft suspension of the 9S, now they've got a custom setting. Done very fast. In which case you can have comfort in, let's say, powertrain, and steering, but the ride will become stiffer. Yeah. So I think that is really, where, let's say, companies like Maruti Suzuki, just their approach, perhaps in the EV race isn't really, let's say, competitive for the Indian market.
Yeah, but what was the funny thing that really puzzles me is that we are talking Suzuki, of course, but there's a partner in on this, which is Toyota, right? I mean, they've also been part of this platform. In fact, I think you also broke that story.
That's a good point, Sergius. In fact, while we're giving Maruti a lot of stick for this, frankly, it's, Toyota which actually took a lead responsibility on the overall program. In fact, when we broke the story, it was quite interesting and exciting. I think we did it 4 years back in Feb 2022, so that's a long time back. It was a whole new concept, and the program was EVCA, or EV for Common Architecture, where Toyota being the lead or kind of orchestrating with all the smaller guys. I think you had Dentsu as a supplier, you had Suzuki, Subaru, Mazda, a whole bunch which kind of formed a consortium to develop one common architecture, the EVCA, EV Common Architecture, and each one then was given responsibility for a certain body style. So obviously Suzuki was given the small vehicles. We got the e-Vitara, which is the YY8, which you remember as a code back then, and an MPV, which is YMC coming. So, whereas Subaru was known for four-wheel drive, so they were to develop that technology. So it was quite a very interesting, on paper, a brilliant strategy. And the code was 40PL, that's what it was. And the sub-platforms for the Indian one are 27PL, which is what, both the YY8 and YMC are on. So really it made a lot of sense, get scale, use individuals' kind of strengths. As I said, Suzuki for small cars, Subaru for four-wheel drive. Obviously, Denso was there with a lot of the electronic as a supplier. But at the end of the day, what it tells you is something very simple, that the Japanese are far behind in the EV race globally. And I think that really is the main issue over here. The e-Vitara kind of is reflective of that. And as you see, we've got really no Japanese players in the EV race. Right now, I think the next will be Honda, which is coming in 27. Nissan, no plan at all. And, Toyota, of course, again, depending on these two models, there's no real talk of anything in the future. They've all been betting big on hybrid. And I think really, for me, what the e-Vitara tells you is how far behind the Japanese are in the EV race.
Absolutely, Hormazd. And it's so funny and ironic that, like you said, as a country, that Japan is so far behind on the EV race when one of the pioneering EVs was the Nissan Leaf.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah,
was
that's
at
right.
one
That
point
was Carlos
highest
Ghosn's vision.
Yeah.
It was not so much the Japanese as Carlos
Fair
Ghosn,
enough.
who at that time bet on EVs,
Fair enough.
when everyone else wasn't. I mean, Toyota was still betting on hybrids at that time. But of course, they've lost that opportunity and just handed that over to the Chinese.
Right. And Hormaz, you mentioned hybrids, and I think this is another thing we should discuss, which is another very odd scenario that you have. Because if you look at hybrids, right, you've got an electrical system in there. Toyota, specifically Toyota, I mean, they're pioneers there. They're really doing well with hybrids. All right. If you think hybrid, you think Toyota. Why not on EVs?
I think the key thing to realize is that, the battery is very different in a hybrid compared to a BEV. And BEVs, it's all about energy density, and that's where LFP is strong, NMC also.
NMC.
But, clearly LFP is now the dominant kind of
Right.
chemistry which China controls, which we'll come to a bit later. But with hybrids, it's, nickel metal hydride, which, the Japanese have really perfected hybrid tech. So, with these batteries, and now they're moving to LTO also, which is lithium titanate. It's the anode which has this kind of material of a lithium ion battery. But the hybrids are, the hybrid batteries, it's a different kind of use case. Very, very quick cycling, short bursts of power, charge, discharge, takes a lot of abuse. And the Japanese have perfected that. But, on the BEV side, they've kind of lost the race. And I think, to me, one of the reasons Japanese are not so focused on EVs as they should be is because they don't control the tech. They're depending on suppliers to give them really key components. Now, just think of it. Imagine both Toyota and Suzuki using BYD blade cells from China for the current, e-Vitara. Now, China and Japan aren't the best of friends right now. In fact, it's at an all-time low. No, and now at an all-time low after certain remarks, Prime Minister of Japan made. They've even, China's even taken the pandas back.
Right.
So I think, you can imagine what it is for a Japanese company that your key component, you have to rely on a Chinese vendor for, and don't forget, Japanese generally, very proud of their engineering. They've developed everything. I mean, if you look at the way the auto industry has developed, they control the whole supply chain, for over decades. And really now they found themselves in a position where they don't control the supply chain or even some of the technology. And if you look at it, where they are lagging clearly is because they bet a lot on hybrids. They took a failed bet on hydrogen, which hasn't really taken off. They kind of took their ball of, BEVs. And now, they find that they're really behind in the race. And I think if you look at it also, what the Chinese have done, in terms of, securing all the critical minerals, Chinese generally have a near monopoly, or let's say a dominance on LFP in terms of refining, in terms of the materials. So clearly that gives them a cost advantage which the Japanese don't have. And I think another area where the Japanese are lagging behind on is software. And now SDVs are very, very critical in EVs. And even Japanese in terms of software are really not there in the race. You've got Americans. I mean, Tesla still is the absolute gold standard. And we talked about
I was just going to say America is actually leading that.
America is leading that. The Chinese are catching up. But I mean, so, it's this kind of, let's say, shift in mobility that really has put the Japanese in not a very advantageous situation.
True. So it's very clear they don't want to play in this area where they know they're weak. And
I think they don't want to play, or let's say, it's tough for them because I think the way, regulations are panning out, it's, they don't want to, not because I think they don't entirely believe in it. I think it's because they've realized they don't are not dominant in the technology the way they'd like it to be. And let's be honest, I think there's merit in what they say of choosing a multi-path strategy,
Yeah.
where hybrids do make a lot of sense, and they do in a lot of areas. And they also say BEVs are important, but I think clearly the way BEVs are developing, and you see the way the battery technology is developing, I think that is the way to go. I think maybe they are betting on leapfrogging the current technology with solid state, which the Japanese are really working on solid state batteries. But right now, they are lagging behind.
Absolutely, Hormazd. I think, what you said is absolutely right. They're probably looking to just leapfrog, because rather than play catch up, just go to where as they say in ice hockey, I think they have that term, go to where the puck is going to be. So I think they're probably going to be looking at that, saying, forget it, let's get to where the battery tech is moving, and even the powertrain tech. I mean, I was just seeing the other day, everyone was doing this 3-in-1 sort of powertrain systems. Tata Motors did what they're claiming is India's first 6-in-1 system. They're combining the AC charger as well, all into one unit. In China, apparently, they're looking at 7 and 10 into one. So it's like everything in this one little box, So,
And let's be honest, I think why the Indians are ahead of the Japanese in the EV race in India. They have no qualms sourcing from where they think it will give the product immense value.
Exactly.
I think both Tata and Mahindra are sourcing from Chinese suppliers. There are a lot of Chinese content in the vehicles, and that's the way it is, because I think that's really what adds the maximum value today. And China is the leader in EV tech, both in terms of technology and in terms of cost. Koreans also are very good. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we love the Korean cars, Ioniq 5, Creta EV. Clearly, they've not done well. Again, there's a cost issue which they have. So what's interesting is that, the Indians and the Chinese, if you take MG, are leading the EV race in India, and the Japanese are even behind the Koreans, even behind, well, I wouldn't say VinFast, because I'm sure they'll sell more than them. But, so I think really it's quite telling that, they've entered this segment or this race with, I would say, a disadvantage which isn't company specific. It's more, let's say, country specific.
Country specific. Absolutely, Hormazd. And, but I think they're going to have to get into this race. And, coming back to Maruti and Toyota, we should discuss what's next for them, because we do know, okay, after the Vitara, there isn't like a huge, massive pipeline of electrics suddenly coming. There's a 3-road derivative of this, and the EWX.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, is there anything else, And I mean, we should discuss.
So I think that with Toyota, there are just 2 models planned, and they're largely for export. So you've got the Vitara, which is the YY8, and you're going to have a MPV version on the same platform, YMC. We don't know the name yet. Likely to come out 6 months later, again for India and the export markets. What I understand is that these products are going to be focused mainly on exports. I don't think they're going to be pushing very high volumes here. Spoken to certain sources, and they're saying Maruti will be happy with just 1,000 units a month of the Vitara.
Especially since they're selling it at such a
price. Exactly. So, I mean, it's not a phenomenal volume. I mean, if you see Mahindra does 3 times that, Tata is a different level altogether. Even the Windsor doing about 3 times that. So I think the feeling is that, they're not making great money at this price, but they want to be in the EV race. They want to show that they are here. What I understand from dealers also is that they're offering dealers 3 cars at a 35% discount. This is what I've heard from certain dealers. Okay. So they can use it for their test drive vehicle. They can keep one for themselves, pass it on. Right. So immediately what you're going to see is, numbers going up, because the dealers have bought a lot of them. So likely you'll see a big jump in numbers for Feb. How that sustains, that remains to be seen. I think what's clear is that there will be takers for these cars who, want that absolute reliability and peace of mind. Maruti is also talking about using their network to kind of, build a charging network. Right. But I don't think that's a USP, because either you want the charging at home, which is what most people want, or you want it on the highways. I don't see how Maruti, dealer network can help on that. Right. So This is the plan, I think, for these vehicles. Not very high volumes for India. Main push is exports, but exports we don't know. I think even in the international press, this car has been panned quite badly.
It has absolutely. I mean, in all of Europe, everyone's similar to our findings. It's not so exciting to drive. Cramped space, something of this size, you are expecting space.
That's the shocking part, because if you look at the Windsor,
Yeah,
it is a classic example of unlocking the benefits of a clean of a skateboard.
exactly.
Mind-blowing interior packaging.
Absolutely.
And if this is born electric, it just baffles me that how wrong they got it by not liberating so much interior space if this was a born electric. You can understand if it was a nice conversion,
Right.
but it's not.
Exactly.
And despite that, they've not got too much.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. Hormazd, you're right. The Windsor is phenomenally spacious inside. I recently I had Andrea was sitting in the rear with those lounge-like seats and this huge Air India Maharaja statue. I said my king and queen in the rear.
Yeah.
But it actually fit in there because there's tremendous amount of headroom too.
Yeah, that's
with
right.
that flat
And I
floor.
think that's why the Windsor is so popular, clearly.
It is largest selling EV today.
That's right.
Yeah.
And even the 9E, Mahindra 9E, XEV 9E making a mark in that segment.
Right.
It's got the design. It's exciting.
Right.
Got a lot of features. It's got the look. It's they put a lot into that. And of course, Tata Motors with the punch. Again, you can see that they put their heart and soul into these. I don't get the feeling, Maruti Suzuki has done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think, Hormazd, so this is this platform. Do you think the next one, which is the EWX, now that looks like it's what that WagonR electric was supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Small, tall boy.
So, so I think, as I said, these two platforms joined with Toyota. That's it.
Right.
Two models, that's it. The future is, I think, again, Toyota, really, there's no plan for it to go EV. Again, they are so kind of focused on their hybrid strategy. And, a lot of them are going to be looking at flex fuels also, which they're getting into. So everything where there is a combustion engine they're going to be concentrating on that a lot. And they'll take the lead on that. I'm sure Maruti is going to take the lead on flex fuel. Toyota's going to be looking at more hybrids, hybridizing more and more of their models. But, you can't ignore EVs. I think Maruti also, has the benefit of being able to meet CAFE without EVs. They're a great job. CNG, huge penetration,
Exactly.
and obviously there's a big fight going on right now, which is a separate discussion on that 909 kilo weight,
Right.
where, this
Exemption,
exactly wanted some benefits there. So I think let's talk about the battery strategy of Suzuki or Maruti Suzuki, because I think clearly these two vehicles, BYD, they're going to be supplying. So it's a multi-partnership strategy. So I think FinDreams is the company which supplies the BYD blade cells, fully imported as packs for these two models. Then you've got Tata Goshen, which is going to be doing for electric motorcycles. You've got TDSG, which is for hybrids. And the interesting one is Eli Power, which is a Japanese company which Suzuki has invested a lot, got a majority stake in there. Now, it's they're going to be setting up in-house production. Basically, it's for storage. The batteries are for storage. But I think they could be developing batteries for, let's say, they said mobility applications as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up in their small car range. So I think, that's what they're looking at in terms of battery. But clearly, I think, the involvement with BYD through FinDreams is going to be quite limited.
If you look on the two-wheeler side also, again, the Japanines aren't doing much. Right?
Absolutely, Sergius. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at it, even Honda, with that QC1 and the Activa, electric Activa,
Yeah.
10,000 units in a year where, it's not even 0.1%.
And again, it's the Indians there like TVS and even startups like Ather. And
that's right. TVS, Bajaj taking the lead. And Yamaha, can you imagine Yamaha has tied up with River for EV tech?
It's
Now,
a platform shared.
That really is very telling, when you have a Japanese company relying on an Indian startup, to kind of, partner with. So I think it's all these things are quite telling. And I think the reasons we've given why the Japanese, I think, have been lagging on EV. I think for me, fundamentally, it's, they don't control
the tech.
The tech. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Hormazd, just coming back to also the EWX,
we talked,
because that's going to be a Suzuki only one.
Yeah, sorry, you got digressed with the talking about the two-wheelers. But I think EWX or whatever, another platform. I think what's clear is that Suzuki is looking at a family of small compact EVs. And I think in that, the battery, in my view, will be perhaps locally produced. The cells, it could be a company that is, let's say Japanese. It could be LE Power. It could be a local company. I think that is very clear, because that's really the heart of the vehicle, which you need complete control of, and you need that localized as much as possible. Marutis are absolute masters at localization. That's really been their key. So once they lock into, their battery supply, I think you will see, let's say, a range of small vehicles coming out. You could see, Wagon-R equivalents. They'll not be ICE conversions, but similar kind of vehicles of that size and segment on a new platform. And I think that's what will happen. So obviously, Maruti's got a lot of strengths. But, Sergius, I'm becoming a little skeptical because, we've had a lot of hope of Maruti doing, let's say, even with the hybrids. But we know that the hybrid has been a bit delayed. They were going to do the series hybrid, very exciting.
Hybrid, yeah.
Now the Franx is coming. How good will that be? We don't know. So if you see the technologies they've got into diesel, they completely messed up. We did a whole podcast on that. EVs with this, not a great start. Hybrids, they've just relied on Suzuki's, tried and tested, let's say, parallel hybrid right now. The one
Toyota system.
The Toyota system, which Toyota has perfected over the years. Now we will have to see how Maruti's own in-house hybrid does.
Right.
It's a company that's learning. And how will they do on the with the smaller EVs as well? Where companies like Tata are really, really good. So I think what I'm seeing is that, in terms of technology, they are quite behind the curve. I mean, they're absolutely ace at the small capacity engines, phenomenally efficient, super reliable, great on running costs. CNG they've mastered in terms of, making it reliable and a low running cost. So in that area, no one can touch them. But the market is expanding with SUVs where they're kind of trying to make a dent over there. They're really kind of limited to this space right now.
So absolutely, I think for too long, Suzuki was like small is all. I think they're realizing now that there's, got to be life beyond just a small car, right?
Yeah, they are, absolutely. And it's not that they don't know that. They're trying that desperately, but I think they're struggling from a brand perspective. Their brand doesn't have the strength to go beyond 20 lakhs to the extent others do. And I think what must be really hurting is how the Indians have gone well beyond 20 lakhs and selling even 25, 30 lakh SUVs quite easily. So I think there's a lot of introspection to be done. But, it's a company that, I'm a great admirer of, just the way they can, it's such a well-oiled machine. They know the Indian consumer well. But I think they've been caught a bit flat-footed in these areas where the market is suddenly pivoting to different areas which they are not familiar with. But I'm sure, I think it's still by far the number one company. Yes, market share is dropping, but, I think what they offer in terms of that kind of overall peace of mind, I think no other company offers that. And that, I think, is continue to be their biggest strength. So I think Maruti is one company you can never write off. Always have to take it seriously. And, they've also made an announcement that by 2030, 15% of their entire portfolio is going to be EVs. They've got a capacity of 380,000. Plan is for 4 EVs by 2030. 2 we already know. Then there's EWX, probably another one as well. Some people are talking about a Jimny electric, but that remains to be seen. But I think, I think it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, just looking at the way the Indian EV market has evolved and the value people expect from the products. It's not necessarily the last word in reliability, but it's about providing excitement, technology, and value.
Yeah, the car, Hormazd, if you look at it, it is the second most expensive purchase we make, at least in the Indian context, after a house, or maybe the third if you have a big grand wedding, But you want that car to be reliable, work all the time. You can't afford things to go wrong. And I think Maruti really cracked that sort of offering to the Indian consumer. And like you correctly said, they are, the number one car maker because of that. But the electric journey begins now, right? And from a product point of view, at least, just looking at purely the e-Vitara, it isn't perfect. It isn't the best starts that, any brand could have maybe had. So now they're going to be relying on, I suppose, the pricing, the network, the reach into the rural areas. And do you think that would make up? Because frankly, that's what they're going to have to bank on.
Absolutely. I think, I think, the Maruti magic, the way it works or with certain models, especially the MPVs, we know how it is, and the small cars, which they completely dominate. I don't know if those same rules apply for EVs, which we've spoken about, So what's unknown still is what's going to be the resale value.
Right.
That's a very key factor, and that's a problem in EVs. But I think, as you said, they're banking on giving a pretty aggressive price.
Right.
I think they had to.
Right.
Then, of course, there's the network. Then, of course, I think is the overall peace of mind and reliability. And I'm sure, we've taken a long time to, get this car out. And you talk to, let's say people in the industry, and Maruti, when their kind of testing and validation, to be honest, is second to none.
Right.
The way they calibrate their products, they have a knack for it. And, they just kind of keep working, fine-tuning until they've made sure that, all parameters are very finely balanced and the products are quite reliable. So I think in that sense, they won't be a problem, but, it'll be reliable, but
Right.
I think a bit unexciting.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to wait and see, how the Vitara does. And I think, obviously, Maruti knows the cards they have to play to get, people to the showrooms. They've done it with the price. And obviously the Maruti promise as well, selling from an Nexa showroom again, which
More premium experience.
more premium experience over there. But again, finally the jury will be the consumer. And I think with that, we'll end this episode of Deep Drive. Do hope you enjoyed watching it. Please do keep sending us your comments. We love hearing from you. And also, you can catch us on our other platforms, which is Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you again, same time next week.